Hello, guys. Yeah, I just wanted to, for the most part, document my thoughts. This topic has been bearing on my mind for a while now. I would probably enjoy watching a video on it more than I would like to make one, but I felt, I had to share my thoughts or at least document if I'm ever gonna post it. So it's not that it's a debate in the programming world or anything of particular interest. I just I've just been wondering a lot about um, specifically what kind of software engineer or developer or even scientist, if we care to, extend it, can become cracked. Cracked meaning uh, can truly attain an exceptional level of mastery in their field. In other words, the nature of personality traits that they possess or maybe even do not possess that help them reach that level. I want to preface by saying I understand not everyone wants to be cracked. Some people just want to make money, pay their bills, and they happen to find themselves in coding. Yes, I understand. Uh, and also, the points I make in this video are solely based on my own bias, and honestly, sometimes I wonder if it's wrong and I just need to adjust my thinking. But you guys can tell me in the comments what you think about that. So, a little bit of introduction here. I'm a software developer of 9 years, quite introverted, self-taught for the most part. Studying computer science right now. I was drawn to coding for mainly its, let's say, autistic aligning features and benefits. Starting out, I thought coding is only reserved for introverted minds who love structure and order and predictability. Anyway, I got the basics of Java, um, transition to Android, saw the sea of stuff that I had to learn. And by the way, I loved learning as long as I'm teaching myself. I saw a sea of stuff that I had to learn to call myself a skill developer, and the amount of bugs, trial and error, solution, and eventually documentation reading because your Stack Overflow solution wouldn't quite fit the problem at hand. I was certain that you had to be introverted and heavily reject extroverted ways. By which I mean going out, socializing, meeting friends, maybe even dating. Unless he or she is on that grind as well and has the emotional bandwidth for the kind of reclusivity that it mandates you to have. So to me it made sense. Programming demands a shit ton of time to get good at. You need a good amount of time to do extroverted things, So, but you have only a finite 24-hour in a day. So, like, how do you want to fit it all in such a way that you still have enough time to not only code but also read? And you can't just say you want to code for 1 hour because, like, well, for me at least, it doesn't really work because 1 hour is too small. I think you'd have to like increase your time budget in most cases. So yes, and if you are the kind of developer that don't read, I don't even know how you cope. Like I've seen some developers that don't read. They just let me say are stagnant. I don't really think you can move ahead in the field of coding except by impressing employers with your personality. That's all the tool you have in your toolbox. You wouldn't have any knowledge to really give if you don't read. So people who do who do not like this level of aloneness would naturally not gravitate to programming. So, yeah, another thing is drive. Coding can be addictive, especially to cracked programmers. You know, they have so much drive to do it, they just want to get it right, and when they get it right, it's like its own kind of high. That can make it so that it's hard to leave a project or do another thing, even eating or cooking your own food. Now, you may say those are the behaviors of autistic people, and maybe it is. That is also why I love programming. Going without food or not bathing because you are coding, that's not me, by the way. Nah, I promise you, I take my bath every day. Um, it's certainly not doing all that is certainly not a problem when you have solid drive. It means you stay longer with problems which you'll be better able to solve, next time. Sure, the knowledge margin doesn't count for much at first, but accumulated over many years, it really starts to make a clear distinction between you and other developers. I don't really think of intelligence as a factor, actually. Well, it depends. Until, let me just explain. If you have what I mentioned earlier, drive, willingness to be alone and study, you will naturally become more intelligent. Programming will make you intelligent if you care to get better. I don't believe intelligence is set. You can become more intelligent or less intelligent depending on your lifestyle choices. So if you are someone that values, mental training, I believe you can get more intelligent. So you simply need to be smart enough to understand the basics in the first place, just so you can get into the context space. And after that, drive will keep you going long enough to struggle to understand the concept, and then the next, and then the next. Okay, I changed my mind. Intelligence is actually a factor. That's because the smarter you are, the faster and more in depth you can grasp concepts. Definitely saves time learning things, and if you're not smart enough, doesn't mean you won't get those concepts. You understand, you get smarter, but for as long as you keep trying and reflect on the way you think. On this, I haven't met a lot of highly intelligent people who are crack programmers to say that those two are correlated, but uh, the gifted people I have met are to some degree introverted and have a lot of drive for learning. For example, they're not necessarily money related. So yes, this might just be my filter, and you are free to object in the comments. But I believe highly skilled programmers tend to be more open minded and more cohesively rather than selectively interested in knowledge in their field at the very least. I might be ruffling some feathers here, but you limit yourself by liking a part of programming but completely uninterested in other parts. And everybody has things they are not interested in, or at least yet in their field, yes. But some more than others, and the breadth also differs. Okay, so what I mean by that is some people might hate entire subfield, and others might just be uninterested in some subfield. So the more you don't like about your field, for example, let's say UML and computer science, the lesser total or net knowledge you can interweave, or is it interleave, to understand deeper or new concepts, to have newer insights. And I want to make a distinction actually between eating and not knowing a topic, and eating but knowing, eating after you know a topic, in other words. So they can be quite correlated. If you hate something after you know it, you probably do not want to hear more about it again. So in this computer science and software engineering field, I have seen people who do not fit any of the markers I have mentioned and seem to be doing well in the field, sometimes more than the cracked ones in employment and financially, and they seem to be plenty. This always seems to me like an irony. It's not what you'd expect at first. You think skill is the ultimate defining factor. I'm not saying talented people are not doing well. I'm just saying that it takes a different set of skills to work in most tech job roles than it takes to be a cracked programmer. So, working demands less high programming skills and more social skills. You're working with other people, so yes, they would care about your fit. I don't really like that verbiage, but it's something that they use. Sometimes your kind of drive might not be what your job wants. You're also stuck doing the things you don't want to be doing. Learning languages you want nothing to do with. I'm looking at you, PHP, because it doesn't really advance your knowledge in the direction that you care about. You get used to the boredom, and soon enough think programming is overrated and you're looking to stop once you've earned enough money, and there goes your drive. Most cracked programmers are not motivated by money. Therefore, they might be willing to quit as soon as they feel they aren't doing what they want to be doing. They are doing it recreatively. It's simply very fulfilling to them. The divide between, let me see, the decision by someone to be cracked and or not cracked has become more vivid, or cracked programmers and non-cracked programmers concept. The existence has become quite more vivid. I have a kind of like non-standard saying, you shall know them by their tokens, or really just their reliance on AI. Cracked programmers are much like artists in a world of cameras and photography. Artists used to criticize photographers back in the day for how clicking camera isn't art. But like at the end of the day, it turns out people define art by the human intention and effort behind it. So like the more intention they notice in an art piece, the more appreciation they have for it. Okay, so it's all about their perception of what message or the amount of effort it took to create such a thing. And some photographers that show these intentions are considered artists in their own right. Okay, because like they show a lot of effort and forethought to their work in their work. Those who don't do that may not be considered artists, but that doesn't mean they don't make money. I mean, not everybody that clicks a camera is a photographer. We all have phones that can take picture, but some people take random picture and they still make money with it. So that doesn't mean they're artists. AI takes a lot of intention and effort away from coding and art. But people don't just pay to be amazed, they also pay for utility. Okay, so maybe AI will phase out developers slowly, but only for the majority who are in it for money. Okay, so because like you are competing with something stronger than you there. Being in it for money isn't a bad thing, I should say. We all need to live. I'm in it for money too, I would like to make some money from programming or get some of the high paying jobs. But Being in it for money means you have to depend on a job which sooner or later will be impacted. Only recreational programmers will be left at the end of the day. You know, those high skilled, those people who code not for the money. All this assumes that AI will find a way to cost less than developers in the future. I think this will happen sooner or later. So only the high skilled, cracked, recreational programmers will be left who choose to see programming as a form of art of which they are its sole admirers. All forms of art was created by weirdos. As they got lucrative, more people got in. When they inevitably got displaced, only the weirdos who started it remained. Yeah, so I would like to hear your own opinion on the nature of, cracked programmers. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you do you have things to add? Add them all in the comments. Um, Stay cracked, people.